In this video, I'm going to show you two additional time-based plugins. The first one is D-Verb, and that stands for Digi-Reverb. And so it's a digital sort of algorithmic reverb plugin here. And I have this in place of air reverb. So it has a lot of the same features. There is a pre-delay knob, which sets the amount of time before the reverb kicks in case you want to hear a bit of the dry sound first and then the reverb. And this goes up to 300 milliseconds, a third of a second, which is, plenty. There is a decay parameter, which is, the biggest knob, and it's like the main parameter here that controls how long it takes the reverb to die away. And this is variable. I'll show you what that means in just a minute. There are two filters here. They both sort of do the same thing. There's a low pass filter and a high frequency cut filter, but they cut the high frequencies in slightly different ways. There's a diffusion control here that helps sculpt the way the reverb sounds as it spreads out. And then there's this mix control. It's not a knob this time. It's like this slider thing, but there it is. You can also control the gain of the incoming signal. Now, the real innovation with D-Verb is this set of buttons at the top here, and this places the plugin in different algorithmic categories. So a room is going to be different than a church. It's going to be different than a nonlinear reverb, just different ways that the plugin processes the incoming signal. Also, there are these small, medium, and large buttons, and it gives you different ranges for the decay time. For instance, if I am on a church and I choose small, right, I can go between 200 milliseconds and infinity. That's a lot. If I go to large, it gives me additional options, before infinity, I suppose. Infinity, is it infinity? I don't know. Does anyone know? Probably not. So, but that's what these are. And it does not sound bad. It's a good sounding plugin. So let's listen to it. You can hear immediate difference. So it's very versatile, it's very transparent, and this has probably been on a lot of recordings that you have heard over the years. Let's check out ModDelay3. I'm going to mute the reverb, unmute the delay, and bring this up. And this looks super complicated, but it's not. If you notice, it has columns, right? Organizational columns. So there's an input meter. There is a left delay control, a right delay control, a left modulation control, and a right modulation control. The modulation is where it gets the name ModDelay3. We are not going to get into the modulation in this video. That's a little too advanced, but we are going to look at the delay times. So if I go over to the left delay here, I can go in between 0 milliseconds and 5 whole seconds, 5,000 seconds, milliseconds. And I like this because when I do sound design, or if I want to shift the timbral properties of an instrument, I like to use really short delays, somewhere around like 20 milliseconds. All right, I'm going to type that in. Now, if I want both the left and right channel to have the same settings, I'm going to hit this link button and then just move a parameter, and you can see that they move together. If I move the delay time, it'll sort of lock in there. And now they're both 20 milliseconds. I'll choose the feedback to be, let's say, 30% feedback. I'm going to leave the low pass filter off now. And then there's this sync button, which we're going to talk about in a second, but just listen to how this sounds. Hear that phasey kind of sound there? And that's because we're using a short delay time. It's not great for mixing, but it's interesting for timbral effects, and I just wanted to show it to you. Let's come up with a more realistic mixing time. How about 250 milliseconds? I'll set the feedback to maybe 35% or so. That's a better mixing reverb or delay. Yeah, there you go. There is this sync button here, and what you can do with this is select a tempo, right? I can move this knob, or I can just type it in and set the meter here, and then I can choose a note value, and it automatically maps the milliseconds to it, so it sort of does the calculations for you. This groove slider will apply a groove or some kind of swing-ish reverb, delay stuff to it here. It's very hard to explain because there's not a lot of controls for it. It's just a single slider. But basically, you can use this if your delay is at the right tempo, but it doesn't quite sound like it's in the pocket. You can try the groove slider to see if that'll help. There are independent wet-dry controls for each channel. And if I want to have separate settings for each channel, I can just delink them and come up with some pretty cool stuff. Finally, there's an output control, and this is ModDelay3. Let's choose a preset here and see what it sounds like. How about just echo? We have a 600 millisecond delay, 34% feedback, a low pass filter around 3700 hertz there, and let's just listen to it. I'd probably bring that delay time down. So ModDelay3, another great option for a delay plugin.